You know what it was?
Welcome, everyone. Today we are here for the workshop on water and wastewater rate study. It's informal. You can talk at any time. Anybody can speak at any time. You don't have to wait for me to call on you. Okay? So with that, I'm beginning the meeting. All right, City Manager.
Honorable Mayor and Council, a little over a year ago, Communities Unlimited reached out and we had a discussion about a rate study. Part of the conversation was how do we move forward with our utilities to be able to either go out for additional debt to complete larger projects like our wastewater treatment plant. We've been hit with the lead and copper regulations by the EPA. Step one is just the inventory, by the way. Step two is to start replacing it all, which is estimated about 6 million. We have had the engineers look at that. So Kurt we've been back and forth with trying to get this presented to council, but they've put together a rate study that's showing if we made incremental increases in what we're currently charging, at the end, we would be bringing in additional revenue. Of course, I know Rick Stevens' question is, well, what are we doing with the additional? The additional revenue would ideally be utilized to pay a debt, to go out for $6 to $8 million to be able to complete a project. And the additional revenue we would bring in every year would allow us to pay that bond back. Currently, the water does have the highest amount of debt tied to it from all the prior projects that have been completed, including replacement of the utilities on the south side. That was in early 2003. So over the years, we've been paying all of our debt down, which has been wonderful to be able to do without any issues. The INS account, just so you guys have some history and background from that we collect off of our property taxes, does not pay the utility debt. What we collect off of our property taxes is only paying off the portion that the general fund is responsible for. The city had gone out for some debt, which was a combined bond. Part of it was from the utilities. The other part of it is from the property taxes that we collect each year. That was for the completion of our animal shelter. That was a multi-million-dollar project. That's where some of this debt comes from. There was some unfortunate, we had 21 items. We completed 2 items on the list of projects kind of deal. They didn't complete everything. That's the past. Can't get over it, just it's the past. But moving forward, we know that we have big water and wastewater projects, and the only way to really be able to support these projects is to go out for debt. The utilities is tied to what we call revenue bonds, which means you have to bring in the revenue in order to be able to pay off the debt. So Kurt is with us today. I did submit the proposal rate study that he had completed with his staff. It is not for public distribution at this time. You do have a hard copy and a digital copy was provided to you earlier. I'm going to allow him to kind of walk through the process of what they did and how they got their numbers, so that you kind of have an idea of if we are going to make a decision to move forward. This is something we really truly need to look at. We do change our rates annually. We don't change the water rate. We only have been changing like the meter rate, the taps, installations, those types of fees. We have not actually raised the amount of water since 2016. So Kurt is actually online with us. He will be doing the presentation. I will share my screen since Gio's letting me now.
Thank you, Gio.
If I can find where I.
That's thank you, Megan, and yeah, thank you guys for having me today. Can y'all hear me? Okay.
Yep, we can.
Okay, great. So yeah, I'm with Communities Unlimited. We are a kind of a nonprofit organization that is primarily funded by USDA grants and EPA grants. In most cases, we help out communities that are less than 10,000. But realistically, we really help out communities that are like 100 or less connections, so usually that's around like 300 population or less. So this particular rate study that we did. It's actually larger than a lot of the ones that we've conducted. So, previous employee, Ashley McAfee, she was the primary one that collected a lot of this data and put a lot of it together. I just kind of, looked at a few different things and put this together for you guys, but it was primarily her doing it, her working on this. So, but yeah, we can go through this first page. Obviously, there's a disclaimer. I'm not a financial advisor. We can, give you this information based on stuff that you give us, and hopefully, that can help determine, the rates for sure. So on this first page, really, what it does, it was kind of sums up the revenue and expenses. They usually when we put together a rate study, we try to throw in the inflation there to show that expenses are likely or can go up, in the future. There are a few line items on there that I've noticed that really shouldn't change, like payments and stuff like that. There are a few things on there, so just kind of disregard that. But on the top there, it shows under the water billing, right? So um, if you adopted one of those rate increases on there, it'll show that additional revenue. So, um, from my understanding on this particular rate study that we put together, the point one really means that the usage rate is going to be changing too. So the base rate, we kind of separate that out into two different types of increases, right? So primarily the base rate and then also the usage rate. So the base rate is really just the rate that everybody pays, no matter what kind of usage that you have, and depending on your meter size, I think is how you guys have y'all's billing is the base rate. So um if you wanted me to share my screen, I can do that over here, or it's really up to you guys because I can go through it also. Can you guys see my screen if I have that for y'all or
We can.
okay?
I only closed it so I could open it in Adobe instead of through my email.
Okay, gotcha. No, yeah, this is totally fine. Yeah, we could stay this way. That's totally fine, Megan. But um, one thing to note in the water expenses, obviously in most communities that we work with, you want to have the revenues covering the expenses for water. You know what I mean? So, and as you can see, the expenses that we've added up, it does show that those expenses are a little bit higher than the revenue bringing in. So, adjusting those rates to meet or even exceed, the expenses is really the best way going forward. And on
So time out to that. Did we adopt a budget that was balanced for water or not?
So we adopt the budget balance for the fund. The fund is water, wastewater, and sanitation. Historically, water and wastewater have always been more expenses than revenue, and the sanitation covers the difference.
Sanitation as in trash collection.
Right.
Okay. So right now, we are not covering the expenses for water through the water rates.
No,
Okay.
we haven't in probably 10 years.
Yeah, and that was one thing that we have to, advise a lot of the small communities that we work with too. There's usually when an enterprise fund is it incorporates the sewer and the water, and a lot of the time the sewer and the trash and everything it brings in a ton of revenue, and that way the water rates can remain low, and a lot of the time the citizens don't necessarily want that increase with the water because they can really feel it a lot of the time if it's abrupt and not over the years. So, but yeah, it's relatively common with a lot of the communities that we work with. So, you guys, but and look, and the one thing that I have highlighted here for the salaries is when working with.
So I'm a little slow, Megan. I'm looking at the budget we adopted, the $16.8 million, and it says for water.
So this isn't the current fiscal year's budget. They started this last fiscal year.
Yeah, I'm looking at 20, 23, 24. Right, that's the budget in right now. And I look at. Water. So it's roughly. So it's a $50,000 difference. Okay. Very good.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Kurt. Go ahead.
Sure, yeah, no problem. So, so on here, yeah, it looks like that one highlighted section with the 511,000, that's really trying to reflect, saying, okay, well, the salary should increase for a lot of operators, because that's one thing we see with a lot of our smaller systems is the operators just leave if they can go to a neighboring system for a lot cheaper, and it's hard for a lot of folks to hold on to operators. So we always, say it'd be nice to have that salary adjustment for water operators. So really that's kind of those two pages, or that page right there summed up. So if you go to the next one here. Okay, yeah, that's just kind of reflecting um that first lighter pink is going to be the difference in inflation and the difference with a capital improvement plan and inflation. So that just kind of shows the amount that it could increase over the years. So that's really about it. If you go to the next one, Megan. So this is really another slide kind of reflecting that same inflation, so on the first line with the green, that's that base fee increase. Then the second is the base fee and the usage fee. So that's just kind of showing how much revenue you would bring in over the years. And then again, those water expenses with the inflation, kind of just comparing the two. So if you go to the next one. So we've put together those current water base rate revenue. In that first blue section, you can see the residential customer count, and how you guys bill is depending on that meter size, right? So the residential has a few different categories. It looks like 4, and then the commercial has a few more. Primarily residential is going to be that 3/4 inch line. Right now the base rate is $6, and then goes to the 1 inch, and you'll see the $9. You guys receive a lot of the base rate through that 3/4 inch is the primary customer. So any kind of adjustment to that is really gonna drive up those revenues. So in the next few pages, will show kind of the difference, in those base rates. But that next section there is just commercial. And again, on all of this data is based on, consumption that we looked at May of 21 to May of 22. So
So base rate means what?
So the base rate is going to be that rate that folks pay no matter what their usage is, right? So it's just really a monthly fee that you pay depending on your meter size. So if you're a normal home with a 3/4 inch line, we've calculated, it shows that you guys that they would pay $6 no matter what monthly. And that adds up in that monthly revenue column right there. And then the annual revenue. So you can see it going across the top there, 3/4 inch. There's that 1,891 customers in that specific section. That's the amount of connections. And then the dollar amount, $6 monthly revenue, annual revenue. So that's pretty simple formula for the base rate. And obviously this is also anticipating very efficient bill paying, and another thing to note that we've looked at over the years is a lot of water systems, they actually collect way more money in revenue during a drought season. So if there's a drought season that's supposed to be happening like next year, then that revenue can really fluctuate quite a bit. So just keep in mind that. Um, but yeah, so that base rate is the rate that somebody pays pretty much depending and monthly depending on their meter size with you guys.
Yeah, so looking at the bottom of the page, the split of customer percentage 95 residential, 5% commercial.
Mhm.
But it's the commercial consuming almost 40% of the water, but only bringing in 14% of the revenue. Is that how I read that?
Yes, absolutely. Yep, that's exactly right.
So remember, we don't have water rates set for residential or commercial use. The water rate is set the same for everyone, depending on from 0 to X number.
Okay.
So the businesses are paying the same thing on it.
Yes.
That's what that.
They're using more, so they'll ideally pay more. You're gonna pay less,
Higher rate.
but they're not at a different rate. Everyone water-wise is paying the same, dependent on the split of categories. So 0 to 2,000 is one rate, 2,000 to 5 is another. Now, I just want to point out, because if you throw gas in the mix, gas is structured a little differently when it comes to the rates. Water is the
Commercial
same.
pays more for gas than I do.
The commercial gets discounts when they start using large
Okay.
pumps.
Okay.
There's no discount, there's no difference, whether you use 0 or use 100,000 gallons, you're gonna pay the same whether you are a resident or a business.
Who gets the 8-inch line?
So if you want to go to that next page, Megan, it should have a little bit more on the current.
Source.
Yeah, so the current fees that this is based, okay, so this for this side of the current rate that you guys have, this is that usage rate, right? So so the rate fee is based on the amount of usage that you have and if you're a commercial or a residential customer, right? So this kind of spaces out the average accounts. As you can see, the commercial customers that use over 100,000 gallons, they're the primary source for that usage income, which is going to be that top one, Megan, the top section, the orange section. So right, yeah, pretty much right there. Yeah, it's going to be the primary source for the revenue. So any kind of adjustment to that category is really going to have an effect on that revenue that you'll bring in. So yeah, and as you can see, the rate fee is only adjusted, um, going through the 1,000 gallon per 1,000 gallon. So this is the current way that you guys have it set up. And on that right side, you can see that, increasing that fee $1, $1.50 really changes how much revenue you guys bring in. And obviously the bottom commercial with that over the 100,000, that's really the primary driving factor for that revenue. So the commercial accounts would be bringing in quite a bit more money for sure, if with that usage increase.
So just to make sure, I'm not sure I see it that way. If I look at the commercial, a $1 rate increase would bring in roughly, 22-23% more. But the residential brings in a lot more. It just, those are big numbers going from 792 to over $1 million. The other one is 150,000.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but what I'm really meaning is one specific change in all of the line items. So residential by itself, absolutely. If you change especially that larger customer base, but under 2,000, which is going to have about 1,014 average accounts. If you increase that $1, yeah, that'll add that additional those additional funds for sure. And then also, going down the line there, it does show that just the number of residential accounts by itself would drastically increase that revenue for sure. But yeah, I see exactly what you're saying there.
What it says is an equal increase across the board. Says the residential customers are going to end up paying, you know, they're paying a higher rate than the commercial customers are just because of the discounts associated with volume. Because 330, you know, a gallon or 330,000 gallons versus 360, it's a 30-cent spread as the commercial customers use more.
Right.
And I just want to point out that residentials who get over that 100,000, 9 out of 10 times, it's because they've had a water leak.
Yep. I can imagine.
Don't catch it and they get it.
Yep. Okay.
That's not like every month you're using that one.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Good.
So that's really the breakdown, you know, of how that rate would affect the just everyone there. So, and that's the usage rate. And as you can see, it brings in quite a bit more than the base rate. But that's also just kind of nice to see. Oh, it's good to view that, because sometimes folks don't know that the usage rate is that sensitive to increase. So. Okay, so this next page, just kind of another overview of the base rate. If you did increase on that right side, it'll say $3, $5, $10, and then $15 on the base fee. But in most cases, you know, customers are going to anticipate a small increase. You know, in the past, systems that we've worked with that are required to increase the rates because of a USDA loan or Texas Water Development Board loan, that rate shock can really come back and, you know, affect the community. Sometimes they might, you know, petition to not have the rate increase. So it's always better to review those increases on an annual basis for sure. But sometimes that doesn't happen. You know, I completely understand that too. It's difficult to make those changes every year, but yeah, so that's pretty self-explanatory right there. As at the green part, the dark green is that new revenue. If you end up changing just those base fees, then that's kind of what that would bring in.
So, but putting it in stark reality from a customer standpoint,
Uh-huh.
our base rate increase is a 50% increase. A $1 increase in per gallon is a 30% increase.
Well, that would be on the usage rate. So this specifically is just that base fee that they pay, just the meter fee, pretty much.
Yeah, that's a 50% increase. $3 on 6 is 50.
Yeah. So yeah, if you had increased it by the $5 amount, then yeah, that would be a significant increase for sure.
We actually have increased the base fee since this.
It's 7 right now. So we've already seen the increase that he's proposing here. We've already seen that. So we're already getting additional $150,000 revenue.
What are we doing with that money?
Our expenses, the inflation and costs and maintenance is one.
I have a question. Is there a way to look at numbers as if you would increase, let's say a user, say a residential uses, I don't know what realistic numbers are, say 1,000 gallons versus when they hit over 2,000 gallons, is there a way to monitor that to see when, because that would work itself out with commercial and residential. In other words, the more water you use, you would increase the usage cost.
Yeah.
It does. So ours is kind of backwards. The less you use, it's a higher rate, and then it slightly increases.
Have you ever crunched the numbers to see what would happen if you change that?
Not 100%, because we don't dictate what people use. And so most of our residents have a minimum account, which is 0 to 2,000 dollars, which you'll see the bigger numbers are in. It would have to be done month to month, and we don't have a system or a process to be able to monitor.
So Megan, you guys have already increased that base fee, that base rate amount?
Yes.
Okay. Okay, good deal.
The only
So,
other fee that we've really increased are really the cost of like adding a new line, extension fees, tap fees. We haven't touched anything significant as far as food consumption and dates.
oh, okay, gotcha.
So our base fee is now $7 or it was 7.6.
No, so the base is 7 plus the minimum water usage.
That's right. Okay.
So yeah, that pretty much explains that page right there.
Just trying to understand. Yeah, okay, that's close enough.
Yeah, so our minimum charge for metered accounts residential is actually $8 per report.
And it was 6.
That would have been. That would have been between 21 and 22.
Yeah, okay.
So we're now at 8.
Right.
So we raised it 2 years. We're trying to get ahead of the game. Are you ready for the next slide, Kurt?
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. So in these different scenarios, as you can see, it just talks about, the base rate increase, if that's increased by 2. But obviously, since you guys have already increased that by $2 instead of the 3 here, then you wouldn't see that full revenue increase. But the usage rate increase, that would be different. So depending on the usage and the category that they're in, that could bring in that additional revenue, right? So right, absolutely. So these are just the few options here. The 0.1, it really just means that it would increase by 1.5 on all of these instead of the $1 usage fee increase. But yeah, I would in that suggestion, depending on their usage, that does seem like a something that you guys could do to bring in that additional revenue for sure to help pay off the just help with the water revenue, you know. In these next pages here, Megan, they should be, yeah. So this will kind of be the breakdown of the rate increases, right? So this would show, what would it look like if it increased by $3, but it wouldn't necessarily be that 9 because it's already 8. So that would so it would be a little bit different than what we proposed here, but anything above 8, there would be an increase. And then, yeah, this next section that's saying that, okay, usage rate increased by $1. That would bring in that additional revenue. Then if you, keep going down here, then that would show, okay, well, what if it was $1.50? Then that would bring in that additional. So really, it's just explaining kind of what we had up in that section that was a little bit above that. So, but ultimately, the decision to make any kind of rate increase, it is up to the board for sure. And we usually don't propose any suggestion. I feel like you guys would know kind of what the customer needs and what would reflect the community best. So that is ultimately up to you guys for sure.
So when we first came before council to increase the fees, it was because we knew we had just started to come out of the pandemic. Inflation was, it was just crazy. We also know that the water and wastewater department are not in a preventative maintenance schedule. They are in a, oh crap, let's get it fixed schedule.
Yeah, for sure.
Does that have an acronym?
Yes. OTI. So we came before I came before council at the time, the utility director was supportive of it, is to make small incremental increases to be able to, one, cover the cost of inflation. Two, to be able to afford the materials we needed to get things fixed. We, living in a small town in rural America, much like other rural towns, have significantly been hit by the ability to get material. It does cost us double to have it shipped out here. We're not as fortunate to live in areas where we can run to a Home Depot or a Lowe's or somewhere that may have a part to temporarily fix something. So inventory has been hard to keep and maintain. We do have a newer crew, who at lack of experience, when they go to fix, sometimes they damage what they're doing and, more inventory, more material, it costs to fix it. Not something that, we're happy about, but it's reality. And so we were trying to make sure when they pull a clamp and, this is a $1,500 clamp and we only have one, let's not break it and then we can't fix the pipe. We have experienced, significant amounts of water leaks, sewer backups. These are all things that require additional material that we have to wait for. We're still on a 12 to 13 month back order schedule for several pieces of equipment, which is why we have things that aren't fixed. Not that we didn't try and get the parts. We're also limited to what we can fix. In regards to our training and staff, I've been pretty adamant about they will not do hot taps because I will not pick up the phone and make a phone call to someone's parents or loved one because something happened and they seriously injured themselves. For those of you who don't know what a hot tap is, it means full pressure on a water line. So we bring someone in for that on their schedule and they're done. That's running up between 10 and 15,000 a tap. So we've learned a lot of our fire hydrants don't have cutoff valves, which means they have to be done hot, which means we are dependent on a third-party vendor to assist us. We also have to follow state procurement law, which kills us, especially when we don't know day-to-day how often we'll use them. When this was put together, the thought process is to start the incremental increases, to look at what it would bring us in an additional. We like the aspect, we also brought in the inflation on expenses. Very, estimate, nothing like, oh, you're gonna increase by 100%. But it kind of gave us an idea to have a talking point for exactly what he mentioned. The USDA does have loans and grants available that we could get additional funding. I recently just notified you that one of our PIFs, our performance information form, where we requested, hey, we have a project we might need help with. The Texas Water Development Board did come back and say, we're interested, but we need you to give us a letter of intent. It is a grant loan, which means 51% of it is a grant. The 49% is a loan, which means debt we have to pay back to Texas Water Development Board on a $6 million water lead and copper line replacement program. This isn't the inventory. This is to actually start replacing the lines that have to be replaced. The Water Development Board offers tons of different grants and loans to be able to improve our infrastructure. So does the USDA. The USDA is a little bit different. Not all of theirs are loan. I know Kurt could definitely help us if we go that direction. We also looked at doing a mosaic of funding where we utilize every funding source humanly possible, including our reserves, to come up with everything we need to do the project. Nobody likes the term debt, but the city on the general fund side has done an excellent job, to the point where the state's gonna come back at some point and say, well, you've done such a good job, we're not gonna let you go out for debt, because that's the direction the state is going with that type of debt. On the water side, we have a lot of mandates that are unfunded. Prime example is this lead and copper. It's an unfunded mandate that we know we have a part 2 that we are not prepared for. We also know that there's huge sections of town that we would like to go in and replace as much of that infrastructure as possible with all new water lines. I strongly do believe, despite that some may not agree, that smart meters are the way to go. because one, it gives control to the customer. It also allows the customer to be able to physically see when their water goes up and down. It helps with our billing software. We have 9 employees read meters and it takes them 3 weeks. We have errors. We have an employee who read his own meter wrong. I said, bill them. They didn't, they corrected it. But there's a lot of discussion for those types of projects as well. Ideally that we would have to go out for debt, but with the smart meter project, it would have that return of investment because your revenue would change. Meter replacement program, we do have meters in the ground that are much older than they should be in the ground for. Average lifespan of a meter should be no more than 10 to 12 years, and that's what's daily use. Your bigger ones you want to replace more often, but they come at a bigger price tag. The newer the meter, and this is what customers don't understand, records every drop that goes through the system. So when we replace a meter and the customer gets upset because now their bill is more, it's because now the meter is reading everything. Which is, it's hard, especially when you're used to having a certain amount every month as your bill. We replace your meter, it's now more expensive. This gives you guys a kind of a rough idea of kind of the direction we would like to go with our rates. It does include the sewer side as well. He just finished the water side. But this is also another discussion for an April workshop, but I wanted you guys to kind of know where we were coming from. Do I can see the sewer side?
Sure.
And they did provide, oh, I don't think I have the sewer side.
Is there on here? No, I think it is.
Yeah, I don't know if we put that one together, but I think that was from a while back. I might have to circle back with you guys on that sewer side.
Yeah, I know that she had worked on it. On the sewer side, and I know Rick will probably look at it, our expenses always exceed the revenue. In 16, we changed the sewer rates to a flat rate, whereas prior we were doing it on a 3-month average for your lowest usage months, which is typically December, January, February. We currently still do that on the commercial side. So every year, the sewer rate on the commercial side will fluctuate based on their water usage. We remove that from the residential side, but we have also not changed the sewer rate on the residential side since 2016. So we have multi-million projects. That is a rate we will need to.
So when will we talk about projects and what those costs?
So I sent out an email earlier today because I'm setting up workshops. So it's gonna be the last workshop. I'd like it to not be before a council meeting. Only because I think we really do need to outline our top priorities with the system. I'd like the team to have the ability to breathe, not necessarily tackle huge projects that are gonna add to their stress, but tackle the ones that are gonna fix the issues that they're currently dealing with, like we're doing with the wastewater treatment.
Yeah, 'cause in my mind, I get rate studies and I don't know what that question is. What's our strategy in terms of what our needs are? And then how do we think about the implications of our, what we need to spend? How do we get recovery of that? And then what's the equitable way to go with the system? So that people say, okay, I can understand it, but we gotta help them get some data. I went through and did the calculations of, we just said a rate increase for home commercial customers, and I looked and says, the high usage commercial customers, on average, of which there's 23, I'm spending $24,000 on water. And so you would say the big spend. Average commercial customer who is the minimum spends $114. So that's in my mind, we gotta help think through not only that, and then say, what are we gonna go spend it on? And how does all that balance out?
Yes, and I really do want us to look at possibly having a residential versus commercial rate.
Yeah, I think so.
We do live in the desert.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that we have a beautiful community and we've been getting some lovely moisture. There has been an ongoing concern, not only with the residents, but with the council as far as, how much water do we have? How long is it gonna last?
Yeah.
I think that our water is the cheapest water anywhere in Texas. If you actually divide what we charge, per gallon, it's about a cent. Which is a lot considering it's probably the most valuable resource that we have. I would like to look at the rate structure and how we do that. I also think that it will help encourage, conservation. We do waste a lot of water because we don't have anything in place to prevent that. And our commercial users are gonna be the ones who will use larger amounts. But it's also good for our residents to know that even though we don't regulate you on what you use your water for and how you use it, you still need to be mindful that, once it's gone, it's gone.
I've had a few residents at the water conference that I attended in Sul Ross earlier this year suggest that maybe the water rates change in the summer. When people are normally watering lawns and things like that, the rates go up a little bit for that, to encourage that conservation.
And then these are all things we can talk about. I just ask that we are mindful when we do rates changing in the middle of the year, that you have to remember, we have an accounting system that doesn't always adjust like you'd like it to adjust. Just to understand that clearly is we manually calculate the commercial sewer rate because our software can. So one of the wonderful things about the flat rate was we didn't have to do that for all 2,800 accounts. We only had to do it for the commercial. I'd also like council to, as we make the changes and we have the discussion, to know the full impact on every department that it affects. So there are a lot of big projects we want to complete. We want to have the funding source to do it. We just want to make sure, like I said, we don't add more stress, that these are things that help relieve some of the stress on the employees.
A couple questions on the lead copper one. You said that's 49-51%, and is the 51% covered by us?
No, the 51% is the grant portion, the 49% is the loan.
So 51%, no payback at all?
Correct.
And do we know what the rates would be on the 49%?
0% interest.
0% interest. Wow.
Unless I read that wrong.
PWDB or?
They come from the Texas Water Development Board as part of their drinking.
Do they put a term limit on it?
So it's one of their programs. So they have multiple funding sources so a lot of that big infrastructure money that came down, that, $1 billion, a lot of it came down to specifically the Water Development Board. So this is their,
Is this what was recently just voted on to create the water
this is one of them.
Texas? Okay.
So this is the Drinking Water State Revolving Fund. So the engineers, Jacob and Martin, have reached out to me multiple times. Do you want to submit a PIP? Do you want to submit for different projects? I say yes to all of them, because I figured, what do we have to lose?
Right.
So I received, and I did notify council, an email saying, congratulations, are you interested? So we submitted a PIP for roughly $6,011,144, specifically for planning, design, and construction to replace our lead and copper. We don't know if that will fully cover the project because we still don't know fully what we have in the grant. We're still doing the inventory side. So the engineers kind of did you most likely have more percentage-wise lead and copper than you think you do. It is on the agenda for April 2nd to submit a letter of intent to the Water Development Board with an application deadline of May 15th. The engineers have already agreed to help us with this application in the process.
So it's May, I was thinking it was April.
April is when we have to tell them yes or no.
Okay.
So we've submitted, we submitted the PIF, it came back and said, for the fiscal year 24, are you interested? We'll say yes or no. If we are, We submit the letter of intent, and then we have to submit our full application by May 15th. And like I said, the engineers are already aware and on board to assist us. So not too much extra stress and timing on our own staff.
And just in case you guys don't know, this lead and copper was a mandate that came down from the state of Texas. And they said, we will do this, period, unfunded, no money. So
So they provided the funding, but it's got a catch. It's not we're gonna help you, we're gonna put money aside, but you're gonna have to have it as a grant loan. That's how
they're helping
they're
us.
helping us.
Now, the lead copper stuff is due by when?
So October 16th is when the inventory is due. We are behind.
Of this year.
Yes, we are significantly behind. Unfortunately,
Can it be a guesstimate inventory? How are they gonna know?
well, there's a category for unknown.
There you go, there you go, Megan.
My last thought process was everything's unknown. We're gonna send out another letter this month asking for residents to help us.
How do we
because
help? Tell me how I can go help and stand on that dirt and know what's under there.
You have to know when you had your plumbing done. Ideally, what we're asking is if you know what your plumbing is, let us know. If you don't, let us know unknown. Because then we have the documentation that we can put unknown and utilize that as an answer. But we have to know both sides. So we have to know the public side and the private side. So what we're asking residents is if they know, to just let us know, is it lead, is it copper, is it PVC, is it poly, whatever they think it is, and that's what we report. Our staff is currently, as they're trying to read meters, they're trying to clean the meter so that they can see the city side, which is, we're good about PVC, and then they can see the connection on the private side. Which is, so it's mostly gonna be PVC. But we do have the oddballs. There are parts of town that have copper. There are parts of town that have lead. And as we're pulling that up and we're seeing it, we're making notes about it. We currently have 1.5 employees working on it. Trying to,
I know, because I've seen them out there.
So, and like I said, we're behind. This should have been started. Unfortunately, it didn't. But the current team is working the best they can. We did invest in the GIS system so that they can go in and record all the pinpoints of what things are. We're utilizing appraisal, not values, but there's a term. There's information available through like the tax office, the appraisal district that kind of gives us an idea of what's in the ground. It's homes that were constructed after a certain date we don't have to worry about, so we automatically know that those don't have the lead and copper. So there's areas of town like the North Carpenter Addition, Toronto Creek, that we don't have to worry about because we know that they were constructed after date. That's what it is, it's the construction date of the houses. The south side, we know that we went in and redid the public side of the water system. So we know that the public side was replaced. One thing we are learning is valves, clamps, certain things, those are copper or lead. Those all have to be recorded. No matter what, we will have the report submitted. I know that
It was all unknown.
Jacob and Martin has reached out and they're gonna kind of see where we're at and help us, give us some guidance. The crew has been doing a lot of the online trainings and touching base with what about this, asking those open-ended questions. I'm not worried, but of course I'm worried. Once this gets submitted to the government, the next step is the replacement. It's pretty much been guaranteed that we'll provide the inventory and the next regulation law update coming down will be you have X amount of time to replace.
So who is you? So I get the public side, I'm still struggling with the personal side,
The private side,
the private side.
It's the homeowner.
the homeowner. So we have to know what the homeowner has, even though it's not part of our,
I get that, who's gonna replace the homeowner side?
that has not been brought to my, like it hasn't really been said.
Okay, because my reaction is.
Yeah,
It's never gonna happen.
I know, they're gonna tell us to replace
It's
it.
like,
and I'm
it's
not
like
gonna do
building
it.
codes. Your house complies with the building code the date it was built.
Yeah.
If you want to remodel, you have to meet the new requirements. If you don't remodel, it is what it is.
And so that's
Right.
one thing that we,
Darren wanted to say something.
The one question, I was gonna ask that same question, and then where does that demarc between public and private on that, and then where's the meter lie? The meter lie exactly between our infrastructure and the house infrastructure?
so our meter is the middle one.
Yeah.
So, say your meter's facing this direction, and this pipe connects to our main distribution line, this is all city. Anything that connects on this side to the house is on the customers.
So I can give you a little feedback. So I know that at my house, which is really old, that some of them, all the new stuff obviously would be PVC. But there is for sure older stuff and a telltale, you cannot connect, like if I wanted to switch out a fountain, faucet that's really, really old, that has got lead in it, it will not connect. You will be forced as an owner to change it out because there will not be a clean connection without a leak.
So
So
that-
they will show themselves quite quickly because it will.
So that's the conversation, like I said, these are coming down from the federal side, the EPA, Environmental Protective Agency, it's not coming down from the city. But this goes back to, we just updated our building code to be in compliance with the 2021 international buildings. And so if those get updated from a federal level, we update on our side. And it's right, when the house is constructed, it's compliant, how do we get them compliant? I don't know if the federal government has totally thought this whole process through. I just know that they've dealt with several huge, we all know Flint, Michigan, huge issues, and so they're just trying to get something.
Nor do I think that they can make the homeowner make that change.
But we can always forward that the current properties that are being built and any upkeep that's being done is.
Right. Kurt?
Hey, sorry to interrupt you guys, but Megan, I actually have to take my daughter to gymnastics class. If you guys if you guys want to talk to me a little bit more about anything related to loans or grants, I'd be happy to join you guys on another one of these work sessions. These are really cool. So
Yes, you are on my list for our future funding conversation.
great, absolutely.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
if you guys want to revisit that rate study and look at different stuff, we can also help out with that. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
So can I continue the discussion about the water study? I just gotta tell you, I got a number of properties. I don't feel we have a concerted effort to go get that information back. I pay my bill, I go about doing my business, and I don't know, and seeing data out of however many there are places we have in terms of contracts, what percentage of we got answers to on the status of the
For the big projects?
No, in terms of the copper
Lead.
Oh.
study. I mean, do you have any idea? 10%, 20%, 30%? I can tell you so far, I'm 0%.
We do not have it clear as of today.
Of how many we need to figure out. Well, at least we can get rid of Carpenter and we can get rid of Toronto Creek Estates.
I don't think you can get rid of all the carbon. Okay.
Some that's older.
Oh, yeah, my house is built 1991. I guarantee it's copper and PEX. I know. I completely remodeled the house when I moved in 10 years ago.
I
know
lived
all
in
the
Carpenter,
coppers and
too.
all the PEXs.
We moved out there in 1968.
Okay.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can't tell me and it wasn't brand new, somebody'd already lived in
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah,
Like 2 or 3 years.
yeah.
So those aren't that new out there.
Yeah.
But I agree, my house has all been changed over. Mine's not even mobile home anymore. Mine is house. Because Jono came and changed all of my whole house, because he got tired of working on it. Said, you mind if I do this? No, Jono, I think that's wonderful. That's what you want to do. I don't care. So mine's been changed over, but I imagine everybody, I'm looking at an apartment that Ross and Debbie have. Do you think anybody? I know they've changed some of it because of breaks and stuff, but under that ground, I bet they didn't dig up, Ryan didn't go dig all that up. So that's a hit and miss, but they can't make them do that, but I would say if my little thing has been fixed, they've been out there enough. I'm at the end of something.
So I'm empathetic to the homeowner because obviously I have houses as well.
Yeah.
But from my standpoint as a city
Yeah.
manager, I have to make sure that the city's compliant so that we don't get in
I
trouble.
get it. All I'm trying to lead to is we need a really conservative PR campaign, radio, newspaper, whatever way we can get the word out. Because that's.
Just
the
send
only
them in the
way
water
we can
bill. I
do
get
it.
my water bill online. I mean, I get an
I'm-
email.
I'm gonna look at it.
Just get an email,
Yeah.
so any little thing that we put in the bill, I don't see.
I don't see it either.
No, because we can't do it by email.
Yeah, but what radio?
Well, no, we
newspaper,
can definitely start, putting
Front
more
page
out.
of the newspaper.
So the first letter we sent
Hello.
out, we
Yeah.
got over 800, responses, which was way more than I thought we would ever
So
get.
they look good.
I was gonna be happy with one. I know that they've completed 2 whole routes as far as both city and residential side.
Yep.
We do know of certain lines that already, just based off of knowledge, people on the job who've been here who know. So we know like the bigger lines that are completely lead. We've also had the guys when they have water leaks, which
All the time.
they make notes on their work order so that we have a way to be, this is incorrect, or this is lead, this is copper. We're hoping that towards the September timeframe, it will be more. But we are allowed.
I just think we may be more aggressive on it.
I think
people
they're-
want it.
Megan, because of my confusion on my water lines and stuff, I got an instrument that kind of helps me determine where stuff is, because it was so old that nothing was recorded. And I would just discover these things by accident. And, I'd be happy to show you what I use, because I think that might help you guys significantly. And I think that you can get a reading from it of density to determine what it is, metal versus, say, PVC. The other thing is, I don't know if you've ever looked into this, your people doing the water, I don't know if they're licensed plumbers, but people who want to be plumbers, they have to do this apprenticeship that's ungodly hours. And you might be able to apply for, to have apprentice come on to get their hours, and it might save you significant amount of money, in your program also.
Good information.
We do currently have internships. It just depends on if they're willing to do it at a lower rate. That's what we normally see. I can be an apprentice with a plumber and still make way more than I'm making as. It's unfortunate. But I did make the notes.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Okay, with that, we'll adjourn. 5:30 is regular city council meeting. We need to fix that clock behind us. If you want to pass it to